Chapter 13. Poor simple fool. I have to get the spinning wheel back, Dawn whispered to herself. That was the only solution. What had just happened in the corner store freaked her out. She couldn't stop thinking about the way those strangers had fallen asleep on their feet, snoring and oblivious to the world around them. The curse was definitely growing stronger, and it would surely keep infecting people unless she followed through on her promise to the fairy. Dawn couldn't worry anymore about the consequences of giving it back. The curse was ruining her life, and now everyone around her was in danger. Dawn skidded up to the antique shop and threw her bike down under the awning. Then she burst through the front doors, preparing to come clean to her aunts and beg them to give her the wheel so she could return it to the fairy. They'd simply have to find another way to save the shop. On her way toward the counter, Dawn swiped a pair of old cat's eye sunglasses off the rack to shield her eyes. She didn't want to infect her aunts with the sleeping curse. It was important to keep them safe. The phone rang. Spindles and things. Dawn could hear Aunt Mary's cheerful voice echoing through the shop as she passed down the packed aisles. "Oh dear, you found a buyer!" Aunt Mary exclaimed, sounding super excited. "The auction was a success? A big success? How much?" Dawn heard hushed voices, then the clank of Mary hung up the receiver. "Fleur, they sold the spinning wheel," she called out. "It's enough to save our shop and get the bank off our backs. This is the biggest blessing." "Oh my, that is good news indeed," Aunt Fleur chirped. "The buyer's coming by the shop Monday afternoon to collect the wheel," Aunt Mary went on. "But the auction house is wiring us the money right away." Dawn felt a jolt of fear. If they already sold the spinning wheel, then how could she get it back now? And the money was on the way? Worse yet, the buyer was coming in 3 short days to retrieve it. Her stomach sank as she thought about it. "Can you believe it?" Mary said. "Oh, Fleur, we're saved!" "And it's all thanks to Dawn. We should get her a nice present with the money as a thank you." "Lovely idea," Fleur said. "What should we get her?" "Maybe a plane ticket to visit her parents and friends back in the city?" Mary suggested. "You know, she's been adjusting well overall, but I know she's still homesick." "What a great plan," Fleur agreed. This only made Dawn feel worse. Her stomach dropped again. Here her aunts were planning to get her the best gift in the whole world, a way for her to visit her true home, and she'd brought a terrible curse upon them by making a deal with a dark fairy. This was even worse than when she got caught helping shoplifters. "Oh, but let's keep the spinning wheel locked up in the safe," Fleur said. "We can't risk anyone trying to steal it." "Oh, yes, it's far too valuable," Mary agreed. Dawn swallowed hard against the churning in her stomach. 1,000 terrible scenarios rushed through her head, each worse than the last. She needed to think of a plan, fast. Dawn slipped out of the aisles and called out to her aunts. She needed somewhere private to gather her thoughts. I'm going to clean out the shed some more." "My dear, what on earth are you wearing?" Mary said with a chuckle. "Let me see those," Fleur said, swiping the sunglasses from Dawn's face before she could protest. "Are those sunglasses from our shop?" But as soon as they looked into Dawn's eyes, they nodded off and fell fast asleep. Their chins rested on their chests, which rose and fell in easy rhythm with their deep breathing. Aunt Fleur still held the sunglasses in her hand. Their snoring echoed through the shop. With a deep shiver, Dawn backed up slowly. "Oh no." Dawn took the glasses and left Aunt Mary and Aunt Fleur snoring away behind the register. She slipped out of the shop and into the shed, hoping they'd wake with her gone. The Dark Fairy's curse was clearly growing stronger and haunting her. All Dawn had wanted was revenge on Leah for not inviting her to the party. But now everything was backfiring. It was even affecting her aunts. Would Philippa be next? I need to get the spinning wheel, but it was locked up in the safe at the office. Dawn put the sunglasses back on and poked around the shed as she tried to calm down. She was completely alone. Feeling dispotent, she nudged a pile of junk with her foot. The old sword toppled over with a loud clang. She pulled it out of the sheath and ran her finger along the blade. Ouch! She cried as it sliced right through her skin. Blood dripped down her finger and splattered on the ground. How was it so sharp? Uneasily, Dawn slid the sword back into the sheath and set it down. Suddenly, caw, caw! A raven took off from the rafters and began circling above her. Dawn ducked but then relaxed. As it settled back down, she proceeded deeper toward the back of the shed. The light from the windows didn't reach this far back. The space was cast in shadow. All the way in the back, something large was covered by a tarp. What was it? Dawn reached out and pulled the covering off. Swish! It slid to the ground, releasing a puff of dust and revealing an antique gilded standing mirror. The frame rocked forward, catching the light with a green flash. Caw, caw! The raven took off again, fluttering around the rafters. Dawn started back. But then, the mirror slumped forward and the flash of green light was gone. Just a play of light and shadow, she decided. Nothing to be afraid of. She was just jumpy from everything. Plus, she was wearing the dark sunglasses. It was easy to think she was seeing things. Dawn removed the glasses, then pushed the mirror back. The glass was tarnished and bent. Her features looked elongated and distorted. I'm a monster, she thought. This is all my fault. Why did trouble seem to follow her like a curse? Even being sent thousands of miles away changed nothing. If anything, it had gotten worse. She peered at her distorted face in the mirror. Suddenly, her reflection morphed into a dark shadow, growing horns and glowing yellow eyes. Another raven took off, circling and cawing. It then dove at her. Dawn jumped away, barely avoiding the bird's sharp talons. Then the horned shadow grew taller in the mirror, raising its staff with a crystal orb on it. It now towered over Dawn. Criminal! The shadow shrieked. What? Rabble! It whispered fiercely. We had a deal. Where's my spinning wheel? Dawn cowered from the mirror. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it, she cried out as the mirror rocked forward again with a flash of emerald light. She tipped the mirror, then cringed back, bracing herself. But it was back to being just an ordinary mirror. All it showed was Dawn's warped reflection, staring back at her. Even the raven had settled down again and was no longer attacking her. But Maleficent was clearly angry. This would keep happening unless she honored their deal. But the spinning wheel had been sold off, and worse, the buyer was coming to the shop on Monday afternoon. What was Dawn going to do?